What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here. Welcome to our daily show where we discuss the fourth stimulus check update, the stimulus package update to $3.5 trillion, which the fate of the stimulus package is tied to the physical infrastructure package, which they tried to vote on last night, and they could not come to an agreement on to vote on that in the House of Representatives. I'll be giving you the latest update on what is expected to happen with that vote in this video, as well as the debt limit ceiling and what happened with the government shutdown late last night as well in this video. So if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe down below. New videos come out here on our channel every day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I will keep you up to date with everything going on in our country, in our government, and with money, investing, and this next stimulus package. Also, if you find these videos helpful, don't forget to hit the like button for us down below, and let's jump right in. So yesterday, the House, the Senate, and the President signed a bill to avert a government shutdown, but it did not include a debt limit ceiling vote. So the debt limit ceiling is still a major problem that we have to address. That will come to pass sometime in mid-October. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen says that our X date, the date that we are expected to hit the debt limit ceiling, the date the government will default, is expected to be or estimated on October 18th. Here is Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen.
It is imperative that Congress address the debt limit. If not, our current estimate is that Treasury will likely exhaust its extraordinary measures by October 18th. At that point, we expect Treasury would be left with very limited resources that would be depleted quickly. America would default for the first time in history. The full faith and credit of the United States would be impaired, and our country would likely face a financial crisis and economic recession as a result.
Yesterday, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen called for the very destructive debt limit to be abolished and to actually get rid of it. The United States is the only country in the world that actually has a debt limit like this in its capacity, and they actually can get rid of it. So remember that all the bills are first approved by Congress, the House, the Senate, and the presidency, first of all. So they don't really need the debt limit. We're the only country in the world that even does this in the first place. So when we pass a bill, House, Senate, presidency approves it, and then we have this debt limit as an extra measure that caps us later on down the road, that every 1 to 2 years has to be raised, and really is now kind of a political measure that we have Democrats and Republicans that are kind of fighting over. And we have this kind of political cat and mouse game that we have both Republicans and Democrats at different points now from several different years now saying that we should just get rid of the debt limit altogether. It's kind of redundant, and it poses a grave risk to the United States, to our economy, to the full faith and credit of the United States, because we could literally default, bankrupt the United States government, and tell the world that we don't know how to run a country because we can't agree to literally just pass a bill because we can't agree to raise it, and we have to do this every 1 to 2 years. And they can actually just literally vote to get rid of it. And the Democrats can actually do it on their own with 50 to 51 votes. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said Thursday she supports abolishing the federal debt limit, calling it, quote, very destructive threat to the full faith and credit of the United States. In a congressional testimony, Yellen argued it made no sense to limit the Treasury's ability to pay its bills. I can't not agree with her there. Already approved by Congress and the president with an arbitrary cap on how much debt it can issue. Remember, they have to do this just to pay the interest on all the debt for the past 200 years of the United States government. She says, quote, when Congress legislates expenditures and puts in place tax policy that determines taxes, those are crucial decisions Congress is making. Yellen says during a hearing before the House Financial Services Committee, where she appeared besides Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell. She says, and if to finance those spending and tax decisions, it's necessary to issue additional debt, I believe it's very destructive to the president and myself, the Treasury Secretary, in this situation where we might be unable to pay those bills that result from those past decisions. Republicans have vowed to block any bill that would increase the debt limit ceiling, despite suspending it 3 times underneath former President Donald Trump, insisting Democrats must do it on their own through the budget reconciliation process, the process on how they're going to pass the stimulus package. Democrats, meanwhile, have blasted Republicans for refusing to support a measure that would allow the Treasury to pay off the debt accumulated over several decades and under both parties. Let me know your thoughts on this. Do you think they should get rid of the debt limit, which is an artificial cap? Because remember that all spending has to be approved by Congress, both the House, the Senate, and the presidency. Let me know your thoughts on this. I personally am in favor of getting rid of the debt limit because it's an artificial measure that is kind of a redundant measure. So, for example, if the debt limit is still there, it's just something additional that Congress needs to pass. So, um, for example, right now, if Democrats are in control of the House, the Senate, and the presidency, Democrats can raise the debt limit. If Republicans are in control of everything, Republicans can raise the debt limit. So it's really just, it really doesn't need to be there. It's just this political cat and mouse game that Democrats use against Republicans, Republicans use against Democrats. And the problem is that the country could default and it causes all this political turmoil, and Social Security payments could be at risk. Medicare, Medicaid could be at risk. The country's full faith and credit could be at risk. And if the country actually does default, well, it could be a political disaster. It could be a financial disaster for millions of Americans. They say it could end up costing America and Americans $15 trillion if we even see a default, even just for a few days. So, and at this point, we're 17 days away, 2.5 weeks away from this happening. And at this point, Republicans are refusing to make a deal with Democrats. All the Republicans need to do at this point is to just grant unanimous consent to the Democrats to allow the Democrats to vote on allowing the Democrats to do a yes vote to raise the debt ceiling in the Senate. So the Democrats can vote on this in the Senate with their 50 to 51 votes in the Senate and raise the debt ceiling. The Republicans have done this in the past the exact same way, with the Republicans doing this. The Republicans have done this, but the Republicans will not allow the Democrats to do this. The Republicans want to force the Democrats to do it through reconciliation, which is a much longer process. And now that we're just a little over 2 weeks away from the debt ceiling, we probably don't have time to do it that way. So, and we've had multiple different key Democrats saying the same thing. We probably don't have time to do it that way. So the question is, are Republicans going to cave in at the last minute and allow the Democrats just to pass the vote? The Republicans don't have to actually vote yes on raising the debt limit ceiling, which is just, it's just silly. They don't normally, both Republicans and Democrats vote yes on raising the debt limit ceiling. Republicans just want to keep their hands clean of it. It's not like Republicans really need to get their hands dirty with this. It's just a vote. It's not like they own the debt or anything like that. This is for past debt. Really, they have to do this just to pay the past debt alone, the interest. But nonetheless, they have to do this or else the country will default. There's no way around this. They have to raise the debt limit ceiling. No ifs, ands, or buts. On the $3.5 trillion stimulus package and the $1.2 trillion physical infrastructure package that almost had a vote, the final vote in the House on the physical infrastructure package last night, in the House, well, there's a little bit of a complication because the progressive Democrats don't want to vote on the physical infrastructure package, which would be the final vote because it would pass the House, then it would go on to the president, and it would be done. Senator Joe Manchin came out last night and said he only wants to spend $1.5 trillion on the $3.5 trillion stimulus package, which is kind of just like, he was just kind of picked this number out of the air. 90 some percent of the Democrats are okay with $3.5 trillion. Joe Manchin has just kind of come out of nowhere and said, well, I want 1.5 trillion. And it's just like, what? The number's 3.5 trillion, and then we have all these, everybody's over here at 3.5 trillion, and then we have Joe Manchin at 1.5 trillion. It's like, where did you come up with that number? Did you just make up this number on your own? So the problem is that we almost literally had this vote here, but the problem is if Joe Manchin doesn't vote yes on the stimulus package, there's not going to be a physical infrastructure package. So now that's actually kind of made the progressive Democrats say, well, now we're actually less likely to vote on the physical infrastructure package because the fate of these two packages are tied together. So yeah, here's a little bit more context.
You're right. In the end, there was no vote yesterday in the House on the $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi was forced to delay the promised vote after progressives made good on their promise not to support the legislation without a deal on a second, larger reconciliation package. The Washington Post reports Pelosi had spent the day huddling with Democrats, warring factions in private meetings, while the White House labored to work with Senators Sinema and Manchin on a spending deal that they could support. But the flurry of outreach, sometimes from President Biden personally, failed to bring the two camps together, generating acrimony among Democrats' own ranks. Senator Manchin left a meeting with the White House officials late last night, insisting the bills not be linked.
You know, I've never linked the two bills together, and pray to God that let's look at each bill that's own merits. There's a lot of good in both of them. We should be able to come to that agreement.
Meanwhile, in a statement, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said, quote, a great deal of progress has been made this week, and we are closer to an agreement than ever, but we're not there yet. And so we will need some additional time to finish the work starting tomorrow morning first thing. But progressives in the House remain adamant the reconciliation needs to be complete before they agree to vote for infrastructure.
We have said clearly, and we reiterated this again to the Speaker, and we're in the same place, that we will not be able to vote for the infrastructure bill until the reconciliation bill has passed. We've been clear that we are ready to vote for both bills and deliver the entirety of the president's agenda.
So they're not budging and leaving the Capitol after midnight. Speaker Pelosi promised a vote will be held on that bipartisan infrastructure plan today.
After hours of meetings, the two sides still seem trillions of dollars apart. How do you bridge this gap?
We're not trillions of dollars.
How disappointed are you that there's no vote tonight, Madam Speaker?
We'll have your vote today. Have your vote today.
Yesterday, of course, Speaker Pelosi saying the thing is we have to have positive thinking.
So no deal in the U.S. House of Representatives last night, but they are going to try to have a vote here today in the House of Representatives for the physical infrastructure package. But the key, one of the main keys, is Representative Joe Manchin. Senator Joe Manchin, I should say. And Senator Joe Manchin, he's a little much more of a pickle. A salty pickle maybe would be a better analogy there. His $1.5 trillion presents a tough hurdle to pass for a lot of key Democrat progressives. And the problem with $1.5 trillion is over the course of 10 years, that's actually only $150 billion per year. $150 billion per year. Well, here's what Bernie Sanders has to say about that. Check this out.
They were fine having the floodgates of spending open under the Trump administration. They're not under a Democrat.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. It was okay for the Republicans to use reconciliation to provide some $2 trillion unpaid for in tax breaks for the wealthiest people in this country. That was fine. But when we are providing dental care and hearing aids for seniors, when we are addressing the crisis of climate, when we are going to make sure that families in America don't have to pay more than 7% of their income for child care, when we're going to provide increased home health care, oh, that's terrible, we can't afford it. And by the way, something else. The military budget is now going to be somewhere around $770, $780 billion. Over a 10-year period, that is more than double what the reconciliation bill will be. And yet I hear very little discussion about throwing money at the military-industrial complex.
And so what he means by that is that $350 billion, if the plan was $3.5 trillion, if it stays at $3.5 trillion, which is really in jeopardy right now, divided by 10 years would be $350 billion per year for 10 years. But Joe Manchin wants it to be $1.5 trillion over 10 years, which would only be $150 billion. But remember, the military budget is $750 or $770 billion per year. So, and largely by and large, don't get me wrong, we need to defend our country. I'm a patriot, so by and large, we have to defend our country. But if you just look at the size of that, $770 billion for defending our country, which really, if, don't get me wrong, we have to defend our country, but it really doesn't help. I don't know if I can say that. It helps our people, right? But if you just look at it in comparison, or at least what Bernie Sanders is trying to say, if you look at it in comparison to the size of that, $770 billion per year, and Joe Manchin wants it to only be $150 billion per year for this entire package, which is really would affect a lot of people's everyday lives. There's Medicare for seniors in there, hearing coverage, dental coverage, vision coverage, lower the Medicare eligibility age, hearing aid coverage. I'll bring this up because a lot of the stuff is on here. Child tax credits are expected to be in there. How many years they're going to extend it for is up in the air now, because they may have to cut the size of this package. But those are basically monthly stimulus checks or monthly checks for 65 million children, which literally provides money in the pockets of families. Child care credits, 2 years of free college. I mean, these are things that directly help people literally. I mean, you can't deny these things. At $3.5 trillion, there could be money in there for a fourth stimulus check on top of these child tax credits in there, on top of the Medicare expansion for seniors. There's paid family and medical leave. There's expected to be an adult tax credit in there for people making less than $50,000. There's a dependent care tax credit in there, if I recall correctly. Health insurance tax credits, lower prescription drug prices. So anybody that has prescription drug prices, you're probably going to end up paying lower amounts on there. Lower taxes for people making under $400,000. A lot of these things are going to affect average everyday people. There could be a $1,000 stimulus debit card in there for people on Medicare. So a lot of these things are going to affect the average everyday person in here. So when you really look at this, this are going to affect the average lives of the average everyday person. So this is the next stimulus package. And really, we always know that they add a lot of stimulus items in there at the very last moment. The second stimulus check was added in there at the very last moment. The second stimulus check was added in there even after they wrote the bill, 6 days before they passed the package. And the $10,200 unemployment credit for people that had unemployment income on the third stimulus check package was added in there at the very last moment as well. So that's the nice thing is they always add nice goodies in there at the very last moment at the last two packages. So as we near the finish line here, especially if they keep the package larger, not listen to Joe Manchin and get his vote. He did do this with the last stimulus package as well. So hopefully he's just grandstanding and they get him to come along and vote for this, for the stimulus package. So if they can swing his vote, that would be a good thing. And maybe they can add some goodies in there at the very last moment, maybe a forced stimulus check on top of the child tax credits, on top of the Medicare benefits for seniors. So let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Don't miss any videos at this point. New videos come out here every day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Make sure to subscribe down below. It's completely free to do so. You can also click the share button down below and share these videos with your friends and family. You can click this video here to watch my newest stimulus check video next. And this video is our family channel called Julian's Adventures with my son Julian. We just published a new video where we go to the Asian Lights Festival. It's a really awesome video. So click on one of those videos next. Thanks, guys, and I will see you in the next video.